There comes a moment, after the silence, after the distance, when they start to wonder if you've moved on, and that's when everything changes, because while they expected you to fall apart, you chose to rise. To become stronger, wiser, and suddenly the absence they created becomes the space where your power was born. This isn't about revenge, it's about rebirth. In this video, we'll uncover 10 powerful habits that make you unforgettable, not in desperation, but in dignity, not by chasing, but by changing. Let them feel the shift. Let your evolution speak louder than your words. Let's begin. They think your silence means you're broken. They assume your quiet is weakness, that your distance is surrender. But what they never understand is that silence, true, deliberate silence, is a power move. It's not absence, it's strategy. Because when you go silent, you take back control of the story. You stop feeding their ego. You stop explaining yourself to people who are never really listening, and in that quiet space something shifts, not just in them, but in you. See, the ones who crave attention the most panic when you give them nothing. No reaction, no response, no trace of your presence. They expect you to fight for clarity, to chase closure, to beg for connection. That's how they validate themselves, through your continued need. But when you go silent, when you vanish without rage or explanation, you flip the script. You force them to sit with the version of themselves they created when they thought they had the upper hand. Most people aren't scared of losing you. They're scared of losing your attention, your energy, your loyalty. So when that disappears without warning, it triggers something in them. Not love. No, not always love, but awareness, real, uncomfortable awareness, awareness that you were real, that your presence wasn't a guarantee, that the comfort you gave so effortlessly is now a void they can't fill. Silence speaks louder than 1,000 messages left on read, because it doesn't beg, it doesn't blame, and it doesn't justify. It just is. It's a mirror. It forces them to hear their own thoughts echoing back without your voice to interrupt them. And if those thoughts come with guilt, regret, or confusion, that's not your burden anymore. That's the cost of taking someone for granted. But let's be honest, this kind of silence isn't easy. It's not passive. It's not just cutting someone off. It's choosing yourself every single day, even when your heart wants to reach out. It's letting the storm of emotions rage inside you while you show nothing on the surface. That's strength, that's discipline. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can write long paragraphs trying to explain their worth. But silence, that takes power, because it means you trust your absence more than their validation. And in that space where you stop responding, something incredible starts to happen. You hear yourself again. Your voice, your needs, your dreams, everything that got buried beneath their mixed signals and selfish patterns. Your silence becomes your sanctuary, a place to rebuild, to refocus, to remember who the hell you were before you started dimming your light to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. You don't disappear to punish, you disappear to protect. You pull back because they proved they couldn't hold space for the real you. And when they realize the version of you they thought they could manipulate is gone, that's when the craving begins. That's when your absence stops feeling like distance and starts tasting like consequence. They'll scroll through your page, wondering why you're not posting. They'll check their messages, thinking maybe they missed something. They'll replay old conversations looking for signs, but you won't be there, not to correct the story, not to defend yourself, not to remind them how much you cared. You'll be gone, not because you're bitter, but because you've grown. And when growth becomes your revenge, silence becomes your language. There's a shift in energy that only silence can deliver. When you used to speak, they ignored it. When you used to give, they expected it. Now, with nothing left to offer but your absence, they finally feel the weight of what they lost, not because you said anything, but because you didn't, and maybe one day they'll reach out, maybe they'll want answers. Closure, connection, but by then you'll have realized something far more valuable. You never needed them to understand you, you just needed to understand yourself, and now that you do, their confusion is no longer your concern. So stay quiet, stay focused, stay dangerous in your stillness, because silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of strength. You are not missing, you are becoming. Self-discipline over desperation. That's the shift that changes everything, because desperation is noisy. It begs, it pleads, it clings to what's already slipping away, it acts out, it sends texts you later regret. It rewatches old photos, revisits old conversations, trying to squeeze some kind of reassurance from a memory that no longer serves you. Desperation convinces you that you have to act fast before they forget you. That you have to remind them of your worth, of what you were, of what they're losing. But let me tell you something that most people never learn. Real power never chases. Real power is still. It waits. It builds. Desperation comes from fear. Fear that they've moved on. Fear that you're replaceable. Fear that you'll be forgotten. But self-discipline, that's born from clarity. It doesn't care who's watching. It doesn't ask for updates on their life. It doesn't stalk their social media hoping to find breadcrumbs of remorse. Self-discipline is the voice inside that says, I know what I bring. If they can't see it, that's not my loss. It's the strength to sit with the emptiness and not fill it with self-doubt. It's looking at the silence and not interpreting it as rejection. It's realizing that walking away doesn't mean you're weak. It means you finally respect yourself enough to stop performing for people who can't appreciate the show. Most people fold because they want closure. They want one last word, one last chance to explain what they felt, what they gave, what they were willing to do. But here's the truth, the people who need to understand won't listen, and the ones who truly valued you never needed reminding. Self-discipline is knowing when to shut that door without slamming it. Just lock it quietly, walk away, go build something, go become someone, not out of spite, but out of purpose. You don't need to prove anything to anyone who made you feel like you were too much or not enough. You don't need to shrink to fit their comfort zone or overextend to stay relevant in their life. That's desperation talking. That's the voice that says, please just notice me again. But when you step into discipline, everything shifts. You wake up and focus on your routine. You go to the gym not to post pictures, but to train your mind. You read books not to appear deep, but to sharpen your spirit. You stop waiting for them to reach out because you're too busy reaching into yourself. They'll wonder where you went. They'll feel the space where your energy used to be, how it uplifted them, how it softened their day, how it made them feel seen. That's the thing people never realize until it's gone. Your presence is a gift. Your consistency, your attention, your love, all of it had value, and when you stop giving it so freely, they start to notice. But by then, you're already somewhere else, not physically, spiritually, mentally. You're in a place where peace isn't tied to their response, where joy isn't dependent on their attention. Self-discipline is the art of becoming unshakable. You feel the ache, sure. You miss the connection, of course. But you don't let it dictate your movements. You don't chase closure that won't heal you. You don't beg for validation from someone who couldn't handle the weight of your truth the first time. You sit with the urge to break silence, and you let it pass. You fight the impulse to check in, and you breathe through it. Every time you choose stillness over scrambling, you train your soul to trust you, to know that you won't abandon yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. And let me say this, self-discipline isn't about pretending you don't care. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending you never loved them. It's about honoring your emotions without becoming enslaved by them. It's about learning how to hold pain in one hand and purpose in the other. That's where the power is, not in denial, but in restraint, in knowing that you could reach out, but you won't, that you could remind them, but you don't. Because every time you choose yourself, you remind your spirit that you are the source, not them, not their approval, not their return. Let them wonder, let them feel your absence, let your silence echo. Because while they're stuck analyzing the version of you they thought they knew, you're out here becoming the version they'll never get access to again. You're not doing it to make them miss you. You're doing it so you never miss yourself again. So keep building, keep rising, keep choosing self-discipline over desperation, because the ones who abandoned you will always question what happened, but you'll never have to. You'll know exactly when the shift occurred, the moment you stopped chasing and started becoming. That's when the craving begins. The glow-up isn't just about looks. It's not about revenge bodies or flexing on social media. That's surface level. That's what they expect you to do. Post a few pictures, change your hair, throw on some confidence like a mask. But I'm not talking about aesthetics. I'm talking about the kind of glow-up they can't define, can't track, and can't get access to anymore. The kind that starts in silence under pressure when nobody's watching. The kind that rebuilds you from the inside out, because here's the truth, when someone breaks you, you have two options. You can stay there, caught in the wreckage, clinging to the pieces of what used to be, or you can turn that pain into momentum. That's the real glow up, when you stop showing up for them and start showing up for yourself. When you stop trying to prove that they lost something valuable and start becoming someone even you didn't know you could be. That's when it stops being about them altogether. And that's when the glow-up becomes dangerous. See, they expect you to fall apart. They expect you to stay stuck in heartbreak, waiting for their return. But the glow-up rewrites the narrative. It says, I used to need your love to feel whole. Now I just need my own. And when that happens, they feel it. They feel the shift in your energy. You're not sending texts at 2 a.m. anymore. You're not hoping they watch your story. You're not checking if they're online. You're too busy rising quietly, relentlessly, unapologetically. And it's not just that you're glowing. It's that you're untouchable now. They knew who you were when they had access to your vulnerability, when you were always available, always explaining, always waiting for them to figure it out, but they never knew this version of you, the one who didn't need closure, didn't need validation, didn't need to be seen to shine. That version is a threat, not because you're trying to hurt them, but because you've finally outgrown the space they once fit in. The glow-up is a weapon because it reveals everything. It shows them what they missed while they were distracted. It shows them what happens when someone walks away from betrayal instead of begging for love, and it stings, because you're still you, but better, not colder but clearer, not harder but sharper. You didn't become a new person to replace the old one. You refined the original. You remembered what you buried while trying to be enough for someone who couldn't even meet you halfway. They'll try to understand what changed. They'll scroll through your photos, listen to your words, maybe even ask mutual friends what's going on with you. But they'll never get it, because the glow-up didn't happen in front of an audience. It happened in those nights you cried alone and still chose to show up the next day. It happened in the discipline of not calling, the restraint of not explaining, the courage of moving forward when everything in you wanted to look back. You want to talk about power. Power is walking into a room they're in and not shrinking. Not needing their attention, not even caring if they look your way. Power is being so in tune with your growth that their presence doesn't stir your peace anymore. That's the glow up, and no, it's not a show for the world. It's not for likes or comments or revenge. It's for you. It's for the version of you that stayed hidden while you were chasing love outside of yourself. They'll remember you, but not the version they left. That version's gone, and what's left is someone they don't recognize, someone they can't manipulate, can't predict, can't access, because this new version doesn't seek closure or justice or attention. This version is too busy building, too focused, too healed to go back. And they'll realize too late that the moment you stopped waiting for them to come back was the moment you became someone they'd never deserve again. This isn't about ego, it's about evolution. You didn't glow up to get noticed. You glowed up to remember your worth. And now, whether they see it or not, whether they admit it or not, they feel it. They feel the absence of your need. The silence of your approval, the withdrawal of your light from their world, and no amount of reflection on their end will ever bring back the version of you that gave them unlimited access, because once you start glowing from within, you stop needing anything that once dimmed you. And that's when they realize they lost something they'll never find again. Mystery is magnetic, and the moment you realize that, you stop oversharing. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never really listening in the first place. You stop trying to convince anyone of your worth, your love, or your loyalty. There's something deeply powerful about holding something back, not in a manipulative way, but in a sacred way, because not everything about you deserves to be on display. Not everyone is entitled to your truth. You become dangerous the day you stop giving away all your details. When you stop handing people a map to your emotions, that's the shift. They no longer know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're doing. And that drives them crazy, because people don't crave certainty. They crave curiosity. They crave unpredictability. They crave what they don't understand. That's why mystery pulls them in deeper than honesty ever could. You used to be an open book, always explaining your silence, always justifying your distance, always giving reasons for your reactions. And where did it get you? Misunderstood, taken for granted, picked apart. You gave them all the pieces and trusted they'd put you together with care, but they didn't. They used those pieces to break you further, so now you move differently, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Mystery is when they can't tell if you're healing or thriving, if you're missing them or completely moved on. It's when you stop posting things that beg for their attention. It's when your story goes blank and they start filling in the silence with their own fear. It's when you disappear, not to be dramatic, but because peace doesn't need to be loud. You let them wonder, let them overthink, let them sit in that space of not knowing. You don't have to explain your absence. You don't have to make them comfortable with your boundaries. You don't owe them an update on your progress, your healing, your glow up. When they walked away, they gave up the right to access the parts of you that were once freely given. Now your growth is private, your wins are quiet, your love is protected. That's what makes it magnetic. It's not for everyone anymore. People always want what they can't figure out. When you stop reacting, stop showing, stop giving them emotional breadcrumbs to follow, they panic. Not because you're cruel, but because they're losing control. They don't get to read your mind like they used to. They don't get to measure your love by how fast you reply or how much you reach out. You've pulled back, not as punishment, but as preservation. You used to overshare because you wanted connection. You thought if they understood you better, they'd treat you better. But now you know the truth. People don't value what's handed to them too easily. They value what's earned, what's discovered, what requires effort and depth. So you keep them guessing. Not because you want attention, but because you've stopped begging for it. Your mystery is your armor now. Not walls to block love, but gates to protect your soul. They'll wonder what you're thinking, if you still care, if you've met someone new, if the silence means freedom or resentment. They'll overanalyze every post, every word, every shift in your energy. Because when they can't read you anymore, they realize how much they depended on your transparency. You were their mirror, their comfort, their certainty, and now you're a mystery they can't decode. Let them sit with that. Let them feel the unease, because you're not here to feed anyone's ego anymore. You're not performing for the possibility of being chosen. You're choosing yourself in silence. And that silence is louder than any confession you ever made. Mystery doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've matured. It means you've learned that real strength is in restraint, not reaction, in stillness, not noise. You've become the question mark they can't solve, the feeling they can't shake, the memory that doesn't fade, and you didn't have to beg, explain, or argue to get there. You just had to step back, say less. Show less, protect more, because mystery isn't about playing games. It's about knowing your value so deeply that you don't need to prove it anymore. And when they finally realize what they lost, they won't even know how to reach you, because they no longer recognize the person you've become. All they'll know is that your silence feels heavier than your presence ever did, and that's the kind of power you never have to speak out loud, emotionally unavailable, yet unforgettable. It sounds like a contradiction, but it's exactly what makes people stay hooked long after you're gone. Because when you're emotionally unavailable, you're not cold, you're controlled, you're not cruel, you're guarded, you're not heartless, you're just done handing your heart to people who don't know how to hold it. And that energy, that detachment, it lingers, it confuses them, it draws them in even when you're pulling away. See, most people are addicted to access. They want your energy on demand. Your vulnerability, your validation, your emotional labor, all of it freely given. But the moment you stop handing it out like it costs nothing, the dynamic shifts. You stop being the one chasing, explaining, overgiving. You become the one they can't quite figure out anymore. They'll call you distant. They'll say you changed, but deep down they know it's not distance, it's discernment. You learned the hard way that not everyone deserves a front row seat to your soul. You used to be emotionally available to people who only wanted temporary comfort. They didn't want to stay, they didn't want to build, they just wanted to feel better in the moment, and you were always there offering love, offering patience, offering depth, and they took it until you were drained. Until you started questioning if maybe you were the problem, but you weren't. You were just giving everything to someone who didn't know what to do with it. So now you've changed not out of spite, but out of survival. You don't respond as quickly, you don't open up as easily, you don't let people in without proving they're worthy of the space, and that's what makes you unforgettable, because emotional unavailability isn't always about being shut off. Sometimes it's just about being done performing, done explaining, done trying to be enough for people who never gave you clarity, never gave you consistency, never gave you peace. They remember you not because you made them feel good, but because you made them feel real. You saw through them. You loved them without conditions, without games, and when you pulled back it left a void, not just because you're gone, but because no one since has shown up the way you did. No one else made them feel seen like that. And the truth, they don't know how to get back to you, because the version of you they could reach easily, the one who was always emotionally available, always accessible, that version doesn't live here anymore. They can't replace that energy. They can find attention, sure. They can find someone who texts back fast, who overshares, who tries too hard, but they won't find someone who made them feel like you did. That effortless depth, that quiet power, that unspoken understanding, and that's why you stay on their mind, not because you're chasing them, not because you're reminding them, but because your absence taught them more than your presence ever could. People always crave what they can't fully have, and when you become emotionally unavailable, you stop being predictable. They don't know if you're thinking about them. They don't know if they still matter. That uncertainty, that haunts them. You don't give them closure. You don't give them chaos. You give them space. And in that space, they unravel. They remember everything. Every look, every moment, every version of you they didn't appreciate in real time. And the more you don't engage, the more they think about engaging with you. That's the irony. The more you pull back, the more they want to pull you in. But by now, you've learned to protect your peace. You've learned that being emotionally unavailable doesn't mean you're incapable of love. It means you're done wasting love on those who can't handle its weight. You still feel deeply, you still care. You just care about yourself more now. You just give your energy where it's safe to give it, where it's earned, where it's reciprocated. They don't forget people like you. You weren't dramatic. You weren't bitter. You just left quietly, powerfully. You stopped reaching out. You stopped breaking your own heart by trying to open someone else's. And in doing so, you became the story they keep replaying, not because you're easy to remember, but because you're impossible to replace. So when they think of you now, it's not just memory, it's mystery, not just nostalgia, it's regret. You're emotionally unavailable, yes, but unforgettable, always, rebuild in shadows, return in power. That's the rhythm of real transformation, the kind that doesn't need an audience, the kind that doesn't beg for attention. You don't need to announce your healing, you don't need to prove your growth. You don't have to let anyone know what you're doing, how you're doing it, or why, because when the rebuilding is real, it's silent. It happens far from the noise, far from the judgment, far from the people who thought they could define your limits. The moment they walked away, the moment they doubted you, they expected your downfall. They expected the breakup to break you. They expected your silence to mean surrender, but instead you went inward. You disappeared. Not to sulk, but to sharpen. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped trying to be seen. You let the world think what it wanted while you buried yourself in work, in discipline, in rebuilding the foundation they thought they destroyed. That's the beauty of shadows. That's where strength is born, not in the spotlight, not in the applause, but in the quiet, in the early mornings and the sleepless nights, in the discipline no one sees. In the prayers, the pain, the persistence, when no one's checking on you, when no one's cheering for you, when the silence gets loud and the only voice left is your own, that's when it happens. That's when you rebuild, not to prove them wrong, but to prove to yourself that they never had the final say over your life. You don't chase revenge, you chase resurrection. You don't want to come back just to make them regret it. You want to come back so strong, so grounded, so evolved that their opinion can't even touch you anymore. That's the difference. Some people fall just to be pitied. You fall so you can rise as someone new. And when you return, you won't have to say a word. The glow, the energy, the presence, it will say everything. People think power is in the comeback speech, but the real power is in not needing one. You don't come back begging for recognition. You don't return looking for closure. You walk in with calm eyes and a full heart, because you've already found peace in places they'll never reach. You're no longer driven by pain, you're driven by purpose. And that kind of transformation, it can't be faked, it can't be rushed, and it definitely can't be ignored. They won't recognize you at first, not because you look different, but because you move different. You're quieter, but heavier, softer, but sharper. Your energy doesn't chase anymore, it attracts, and suddenly the people who underestimated you will feel it, not in your words, but in your absence, in the version of you they no longer have access to. The version they thought would stay broken. The version they never believed would walk away without turning back. That's the kind of return they can't prepare for, because you didn't just heal, you upgraded. You didn't just survive, you transcended. You learned how to be whole without the need to be seen. And now, you move with intention, you speak with conviction, you love with boundaries, you show up for yourself in ways they never expected. And they'll feel the shift, not because you've become someone else, but because you finally became everything you were suppressing for their comfort. Don't rush the process. Let the shadows do their work. Let the silence teach you. Let the pain shape you. Because when you do return, you won't come back looking for what was lost. You'll come back too powerful to even want it anymore. That's when you know you've really rebuilt. When the thing you once begged for doesn't even tempt you anymore. Because what's waiting on the other side of this pain is so much greater than anything you were trying to hold onto. So stay in the shadows as long as you need. Stay quiet, stay focused. Let them think they've seen the last of you. Let them assume you've faded, because when the time is right, when the work is done, when the scars have turned to armor, you'll return. And when you do, you won't have to remind anyone of who you are. Your presence alone will do the talking. They thought distance would make them forget, but instead it gave you the space to become unforgettable. You stopped explaining, you stopped chasing, and through silence you rebuilt. Not to impress them, but to respect yourself, because the version of you they knew was only the beginning. Now your energy speaks for you, your peace protects you, and your habits carry a message louder than any apology ever could. Let them wonder, let them remember, let your glow whisper the truth. You didn't lose them, you found you. Until next time, protect your power and never apologize for evolving.